district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offers the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the... And I'll always be traded. And I'll always be traded. And I'll always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? Welcome back in the GOAT District for a monster show. We're getting closer to the middle of the year almost. Can't believe it's already almost week 7, guys. And we bring you one of our biggest guests, one of the top rankers out there in the Fantasyland, the FantasyPros in-season rankings, creates content for FTN Fantasy. He's here to talk all good things. Week 6, going into week 7. We're going to help you guys win your weeks. Tyler, welcome to the district, brother.
Thrilled to be here. I think this is my first official time on the district here. We've been playing Dynasty, I think, for at least 7 years now, and I think our Dynasty league we've been playing together is 7 years. And I feel like these days, any Dynasty league that's going over 5 is pretty rare. So thrilled to be able to come on the show with some longtime league mates and be able to chop it up and talk about the week ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're in the presence of greatness here. I mean, you have been on the top 10 of the FantasyPros basically since the start of the season. It feels like, and we haven't gotten the rankings for this week yet, but I feel pretty certain you're still going to be right up there. So that's amazing to me.
It's not an easy. It's not an easy feat.
Yeah, that's something I could never ever do.
It's interesting, you know. I've been doing it. I've been at it for about 5. This will be my 6th full season doing it, and like I really kind of leaned into projections as kind of like a baseline to like how am I going to become better at fantasy? How am I going to create a process? How am I going to try to not only deliver better content to listeners and subscribers, but also just get better as a fantasy player, right? And that kind of directly translated into the FantasyPros rankings is, it's pretty fair to say, like, if you're good at it, a fair amount of clout comes from it. It's not the only reason I do it, but it's like you get some recognition. So it's something I put a lot of time and effort into it, and it's great to be able to take it down last year as the #1 ranker and then continue to sit in the top 5 this year. It's a lot of work, but I love it.
Consistent. He's like the Kansas City Chiefs of rankings. I mean, these days. I mean, just it takes it all and then comes back and just consistent right off the bat, and that it's definitely impressive. And it's also respect, right? You kind of gain some respect from people that maybe don't know you or know you less and aren't in leagues with you and that sort of thing. So that's awesome, man. I know Dan and I get excited whenever we see like your name or Wheeler, some of the GOATs in the GOAT district leagues, and it's nice to see you guys crushing it. And we got a lot to talk about tonight, so we're definitely glad that you're with us. We're going to be talking, usual week 6 fallout. Talk about the headlines, what's important to your fantasy teams, fantasy impact, that sort of thing. Waiver wires for sure. It's always tough on the Tuesday, Dan, going into that Wednesday and talking waiver. But if you're tuning in, we want to make sure we give you guys, some good names to go after with your bid money. Talk about some emerging players. Look at week 7. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Don't forget to bring your questions, guys. If you're watching live, drop your questions in the chat. If you're watching this later on, we'll take them in the comments. We've got, speaking of Wheeler, we've got Kev jumping in, so we appreciate him joining us tonight. We got to get Kevin on. Actually, I've been trying to coordinate that with him. But let's get into week 6, guys. Fresh off of the Falcons defense just looking solid against Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. How do we value Buffalo Bills skill players? Like you've got Kincaid, who's currently injured. You've got James Cook, who's had a couple slower games. I know I traded for him last week and was expecting a lot of points this week. Still got the W, but wasn't because of James Cook, that's for sure. Are we worried about them? I'll go to you first, Tyler. In like tougher road matchups specifically. Is this something that you see? I know they didn't have Kincaid there, but is this something you see problematic moving forward? Is this a one-off? How does this change your approach on Buffalo Bills moving forward on your roster?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I'm glad we're starting off with this too, because going into this game, I didn't bet it or anything, but I was kind of diving into some of the stats on FTN Stat Hub, and we there's like we have a stat that's called like DVOA, right? And it's basically like a measure of a team's efficiency by comparing success on every single play to a league average based on situation opponent. It's really kind of like a I would say almost an objective way of kind of looking at things. And going into that game, Atlanta Falcons actually had like the best defense in the NFL to that metric, right? So you could use any metric to make any argument you want to determine what's the best defense in the NFL for sure. But for this one, I do really think DVOA is a great metric, and it's over at FTN. And it's something I've been using for years. And they had the Falcons as the top defense. They were the top-ranked defense, and it really kind of stuck out to me. And I probably should have bet it because I was like, wow, this is like could be something I should be looking at. Maybe this is something I need to jump on. I didn't. But for me, this is more of a one-off thing. I'm not really panicking with the Bills' offense too much, and I also think it's not really worth panicking because we're not really invested into a lot of pieces onto this offense either, right? I don't think anyone out there is rolling out any of the pass catchers on a regular basis thinking that they're going to smash for them. That's just not what we're doing with.
Yeah, I had to roll out Knox. I had to roll out Knox this weekend, so
it worked out for you. So for me, it's like I'm not panicked. I'm continuing with James Cook, obviously continuing with Josh Allen. I think Kincaid is like kind of a fine streamer just because he's not playing a ton. And then if you need to roll out Khalil Shakir, but I just think that we're not depending on the Bills' offensive pieces in fantasy outside of James Cook and outside of Josh Allen on a regular basis, where this is an easy kind of write-off where I look at that and be like, this is an underrated defense in the Falcons. We can continue to roll out these key pieces on the Buffalo Bills offense going forward, and I'm not really sweating it.
Dan, low-key tight end 1 right now, Dalton Kincaid, tight end 6 with fantasy points per game. James Cook, like we said, couple single-digit games, so we'll chalk it up to whatever. What are your thoughts on Buffalo moving forward? Have any concerns? I know, looking at the offense, it feels like they just need either someone to really step up or just to get themselves a stud at the receiving position to help. When you look at all these other teams, you look at Mahomes' success right now with the amount of ammunition he's got, and he doesn't even have Rice yet. We'll talk about that later on, but you got to think Buffalo thinks like we keep getting to this certain point in the in the playoffs, and then we need something to get over the hump. Do they get that piece moving forward? You think with trade rumors coming up, or do you think this offense is fine the way it is?
No, I don't think the offense is fine the way it is. I mean, I thought Tyler put his finger on it pretty well. Other than maybe Kincaid, you probably aren't starting anybody other than Josh Allen and James Cook. And Kincaid is probably the best commercial in the world for not looking too closely at snap counts or, route percentages or any of that kind of stuff because, he doesn't get as many snaps as a lot of tight ends. He's not out in routes as much as a lot of tight ends, as far as a total percentage of his team's pass plays. But it really doesn't matter because when he is out in a route, Josh Allen is looking for him, and those are the kind of things that, we got to pay even more attention to. So I think what the Bills are missing, though, and we were talking about this on the Fantasy Empire this morning, is they really need an elite pass catcher. They need that alpha wide receiver, and they also just need to start emphasizing the passing game a little bit more. I mean, Joe Brady famously is, run at all costs type of offensive coordinator, and that's great if you're ahead. But when the Bills fall behind, that makes it real difficult for them to try to catch up. I think they need to be a more balanced offense. They need to be using the pass a little bit more. And I'm not sure if right now they've got the pieces to do that. I'd love to see Chris Olave on that team. I think that would be a fantastic add if they could somehow swing that and trade. But, most of the trades we hope happen never happen. So tough deal for them.
Yeah, the Bills right now, the most run-heavy team when you're looking at the run-pass percentage splits as per FF today. So, like you said, you hope that there's a change in the offense in the sense that they lean a bit more on Allen's arm. They talk about the big arm. Let's get that going. And let's add a nice piece here in trade season. I mean, there's a lot of pieces right now we're hearing rumors about. I feel like in the receiving game, there's got to be something out there they can bring in that can pass these guys, these kind of like flat guys like the Palmers, And I mean, I think we all kind of hope Coleman could take that step this year, but I feel like he's kind of got a role, and that's where it is right now. And they probably need someone to come in and be the guy. I like that Olave call, actually. Looking at the thing I want to ask you, Tyler, when you talked about the Atlanta defense, was that coming into the season in that game specifically, or they were ranked after 6 weeks as the number one defense?
Yeah, after 5 weeks, they were ranked through DVOA as the number one defense.
Okay.
One of the best pass defenses. Pretty middling run defense, but then really just getting a lot of pressure as well. And you kind of like put all that together with the DVOA, and it stuck out to me. Let's put it that way. When I saw that the DVOA had them as the number one defense, I was kind of like, wow, I didn't really think about that. And then I kind of broke it down and was like, all right, we'll see. And then they did that to the Bills offense, and I was like, you know what? Maybe there was something to it. So it was through the first 5 weeks when they were number one. They're still number one through all 6 weeks. On the website, I just checked a second ago.
Well, even looking at their fantasy points allowed, like to each position, they're pretty much top 5 at every position. Yep. Number 1 against the tight end, number 4 against the quarterback, 5 and 6 against running back and receivers. So, like you said, they're pretty solid across the board. It's not just one side of it. And apart from a 3-point loss at home versus a healthy Bucks, and that that 30-0 off. One off against Carolina, that they probably want to forget in Carolina. They've beat some pretty good teams, right? Minnesota, Washington, and now Buffalo. So next few games, they go to San Fran. They're at home to Miami. They go to New England, and then against surprisingly good Indianapolis Colts team the next 4 weeks. In the playoffs, they're at Tampa Bay, week 15 to 17 at Tampa Bay, at Arizona, and then at home against the Rams. So you want to kind of keep an eye, just like, when teams go up against Denver, you want to kind of keep an eye on your players that are going up against Atlanta. And then if you're playing leagues with defenses, you hope that you have Atlanta right now.
Yep.
All right, speaking of defenses, Broncos sacked the Jets into minus 10 net passing yards. That's nuts. Are any Jets wide receivers startable right now? I know where I want to go with this answer, but I'll let you guys answer first. Dan, I'll go to you first. Who are you looking at right now, receivers in the Jets offense, if any, moving forward?
Yeah, the if any is the clause I'm going to lean on, because the answer is none. If Garrett Wilson isn't in there, I mean, coming off the Broncos, that's a tough defense, but the Jets looked even worse than they should have against the Broncos. I mean, that was just I wanted to tear my eyeballs out after watching most of that game. It was just so terrible. They had no idea what they were doing. Justin Fields just does not have the pocket awareness that he needs to have. He doesn't even throw the ball away. And without Garrett Wilson in there, you can't start any of these wide receivers. I mean, Mason Taylor is about the only player that I would consider starting, and he's probably going to get a good number of targets here in the next week or two. But even with that, I don't feel great about starting him. I mean, he'd be, in most leagues, I think a desperation wideout or desperation tight end.
Yeah, apart from the rookie tight end, Tyler, is there anyone that you're interested in this offense moving forward? Anyone sneaky that, even if it's just a stash?
Nah, I got to agree. I got nothing. There's nothing there for me that I'm remotely interested in, just considering Fields' ability as a passer and then the talent there as well. If he wasn't going to bring up Mason Taylor, I was going to. I think he's certainly going to have some weeks where he can stream him, but besides that, it's tough to get on board. Tough to drum up any kind of excitement.
on the other side of it, and I'll go back to you first, Tyler, with this one, just kind of like the same way we looked at Atlanta. We knew coming in, Denver was kind of, Dan, in the FFPC drafts, they're always pretty much the first defense off the board. So it was expected. Right now, other than versus a kicker, they're, tops against each position. So, I mean, is this a defense unless you've got those kind of high-end studs that you just have to play every week, or are you even second guessing putting them in your lineups? Like, how do you approach this defense moving forward, Tyler?
I mean, I probably, it's one of the few defenses where if I see one of my players is playing against them, I got to put some thought into it. I'm pretty firmly never bench the studs just because they are studs. They do have that kind of elite talent. But I think there are those kind of like fringe players, those kind of running backs who are kind of low-end running back 2s or the wide receiver 3s, maybe considering streaming a tight end. Those are the guys that if you see them up against a team like the Broncos defense, that you're probably better off just sitting them on the benches. There's not going to be a lot of meat on the bone when you're playing against a defense like the Broncos. There's just not – it's not a very fruitful fantasy ground for fantasy points when you're playing these defenses. So for me, it's like you start your studs against them. But ideally, you find some, they're kind of those more fringe players that aren't locked into your lineup every week, that you find some time to be able to put them on the bench when they're up against the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, Dan, legit contender, right? They lost by 1 against Indy, by 3 against the Chargers. Otherwise, Sean Payton, the Broncos, just putting up W's. Next 4 weeks versus the Giants, versus Dallas, at Houston, and versus Vegas. So pretty nice schedule for them. The playoffs, they go up against Green Bay, Jacksonville, and then at KC. Dan, how do you manage players going up against the Broncos right now?
Yeah, they've been pretty much, I'm not going to start anybody against them unless they're one of my studs, pretty much what Tyler said. And I think this is a team that the defense has kind of continued to get better as the season has gone along. I don't think they were at the top of their game for the first couple weeks, and they're really starting to look good now. I bet Denver for over 9.5 wins. I think that's pretty much a lock at this point, and I also took a dark horse bet on them to win the AFC. And, I feel all right about that. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but, I still think they're a very good dark horse for that. So, yeah, and the defense is leading the way because the offense is really struggling to put things together right now still. They're just not very consistent, and so the defense is kind of what's, and they know it's on their shoulders too. And when that's the case, that's pretty tough when you're going up against them in fantasy.
Dan, you talked about Justin Fields and, just him, his passing game just as a whole wasn't really impressing you from what I could tell. Is he droppable right now? Like, how do you manage Fields? Like in a 1 QB, like these FFPC tourneys that we play, and then, on the other side of that, in these dynasty leagues, like the deeper ones that we play with, like Tyler, or the FFPC, like Superflex 1 QB, how are you managing Justin Fields moving forward?
Yeah, so Fields is a quarterback that, no, I'm not going to bench him. He's going to have better days than what he had against Denver. We've seen him have better days as well. But he's a quarterback that, if I'm starting him in fantasy, I never, ever want to watch that game. I just don't want to see it. Because it's going to look terrible for 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden in the 4th quarter, he'll do some stuff, get it done, and you come up with a pretty good stat line at the end. I think that's probably going to be the case more often than not moving forward. They don't really have much else in the way of options other than Tyrod Taylor, who I don't think, he could fill in for a game or two, but I don't think they can rely on him any longer than that. So it's basically Fields or bust right now for the Jets, and given that, I will keep starting Fields where I need to.
Yeah, it's too bad because Fields, I know like Snowman and I have a few teams with Fields. I can't remember if you and I have any of them, Dan, but he's one of those guys where it's like you kind of got excited if he fell far enough in those 1 QB tournament drafts because he was possibly going to give you some of that top 5 action every once in a while at a discounted price versus like those top guys. So, he gave you QB2 week 1 against Pittsburgh, QB4 against Miami. and was still top 7 against Dallas. So hopefully he can still get it done for you when you start him. Without Wilson, what's his like timeline?
Couple weeks.
Couple weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a hyperextension, I believe, was what it was.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of the extent I got to.
Another team dealing with receiver issue, but see a glimmer of hope with the Jaxson Dart Cam Scatterboot duo, the dynamic duo. They just trounced the Eagles, which was just, like the last thing Philadelphia needed with the way the season has been going with, probably the worst 4-1 record, I guess, the way people were making it sound. But Dart right now in Superflex, I think in Superflex, he's pretty much a weekly option, at least as your QB2, right? QB 11 in week 4, QB 16 in week 5, put up 23 points this past week against Philadelphia. What are your thoughts on Dart moving forward, Tyler? The Giants, what can people expect basically from the young quarterback rest of way?
I mean, I love Jaxson Dart, so I'm glad you asked me this question, because he was like probably one of my bigger flag plants of the offseason. Had him firmly ahead of Cam Ward in fantasy. Obviously, like a fantasy option is somebody I was really targeting in a lot of my drafts, and so far it's worked out pretty good for me. He's obviously going to be a super flex option. I mean, he's finished, I believe, QB 11, QB 16, and then QB 3 when he started games. Like I think he's a top 15 option weekly just because of the way that he runs, right? I talked about it a lot in the offseason, where he's not like a rushing quarterback necessarily, like I would consider like Lamar Jackson, but like the dude can scoot, right? Like in college, he was getting about 40 yards a game. We're seeing that now, a little better, about 50 yards a game. But like that kind of floor where he's going to give you 4 or 5 points rushing floor every single game really makes up for his lack of passing, which is, frankly, not totally his fault with the neighbor's injury. And then he also has the opportunity to rush in those touchdowns, which we've seen as well. So I think he's absolutely an option in Superflex. He's a great option in Superflex. And I think he's going to be very streamable in 1 QB leagues. Like if you're really hurting at quarterback, say you've depended on like something like Kyler Murray in a 1 QB league, and that's not going well right now. You want to look in a different direction. Jaxson Dart is the direction which I'd be pretty comfortable going. Not this next week, because he gets the Denver Broncos, right? We're not going to be streaming Jaxson Dart against the Broncos, but after that he gets the Eagles again, San Francisco, Bears. I mean, he's got some easier matchups coming up where I think he's absolutely a streamable quarterback and needs to have a little bit more respect on his name as somebody that can be a real fantasy contributor for folks who don't have like a locked-in top 6, top 8 option on a weekly basis.
Dan, anything to add on Jaxson Dart?
No, I think that's a pretty good summary right there. He's the kind of guy who just he gets it done one way or the other, and it doesn't really seem to matter him, what way that is, whether that's handing the ball off or throwing it or doing it with his own legs. Whatever's working, that's what he's going to go with. He's clearly got his team is so excited. I mean, the Giants are so excited to have Dart. I mean, the demeanor on the sideline was just palpable on Thursday night. How much they believe in Dart, and that goes a long way for a quarterback. I mean, we like to talk about lots of figures and facts and everything else. We've got stats for everything, but I do think there's an intangible element to the game as well, and Dart is aces on that. So he's a fun guy to root for as well.
Yeah, carries per game right now, the QB5, which is nice. He's getting over 6 carries at least per game on average, and you got to see him just getting more comfortable as the season goes, and hopefully getting his pass attempts a little higher and gets his boy neighbors back eventually. But looking kind of deeper on this roster, Tyler, are there any pass catchers that Fantasyland should be stashing right now or paying attention to? Whether it's, throwing into a flex or on the bench when you're looking at the receiving game specifically with the Giants right now?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just Wan'Dale Robinson or bust for the most part, just because he's always kind of been that volume guy, especially in your PPR leagues. He's been a big guy where I'm like, I haven't been too excited, but now with Neighbors out of the picture, there is a lot of volume that's going to be coming his way. So certainly have no problem with Wan'Dale as like certainly a stash in some weeks. I'd be pretty comfortable actually kind of rolling him out, especially because we've seen his like average depth of target increase a bit. He's always just kind of been like a short area of the field, kind of 4 or 5 yard pass kind of guy. He's expanded on that a bit, which is great for fantasy. But you kind of look at Wan'Dale has been able to do. He had a couple duds, but he's been getting the volume. Looking at the last couple of games, I mean, the targets have been 7, 7, 5, 4, 10, 8. I mean, the targets are there. So I think he's a guy that absolutely should be at least rostered, just considering where else is the ball going to go. And then I think more of like a deeper option, not necessarily someone I want on my regular size bench, but Theo Johnson. He's a good tight end. I think he's a little bit slept on. Not a guy that I'm comfortable rolling out there every single week, but certainly in some matchups, I do think Theo Johnson can be a pretty solid streamer for folks. Just kind of hoping that he looks his way for a touchdown, as I do believe those are probably the two best pass catching options right now, outside of obviously Scatterbo on this offense. So I'm not excited about any of these pieces, but I do think they deserve some attention when talking about Wan'Dale and Theo Johnson.
Yeah, Theo Johnson, one of my favorite tight end threes, Dan, where he was going like ADP wise. He was a really nice value. I liked him. Like you said, Tyler, kind of a sneaky play. I feel like didn't have much hype coming into the season. He was injured last year, but looked really good when he was out on the field, and they looked like they wanted to make him part of that offense. And hopefully now Dart can lean on him. I mean, he's coming off of a tight end 3 week against New Orleans with 7 targets, 6 receptions. And a couple touchdowns, right? In that week. So hopefully keeps targeting in the red zone. I mean, last week was kind of ugly against Philly. I know we slid him in at the last minute in a roster, and obviously that didn't pan out. But a lot of things didn't pan out last week. Guys, I see your questions. I'll get to that. We'll bring those questions in and we'll answer those for you. Keep them coming in the chat. And Dan, what was I going to ask you? Yeah, with regards to like stashes, is little Jordan Humphrey a guy you're interested in? 8 targets this past week against Philly, 4 for 55. Hyatt, 5 targets. Any of those guys, even as deep stashes, or are you just kind of sticking to the same guys Tyler is with Wan'Dale and Theo?
Yeah, for the most part, it's Wan'Dale and Theo for me. I mean, there are some formats I play in where you start 3 wide receivers and then a couple flexes, or at least 1 flex, and these rosters, these are seasonal teams, not Dynasty, but you're looking at it. A lot of wide receivers being rostered, and yeah, I will probably pick up some Will Jordan Humphrey, probably pick up a little Jalen Hyatt, just to stash at the back of the bench, just because wide receivers have been getting hurt at an extraordinary rate as of the past 3 weeks or so. So there are teams where I'm sort of running out of healthy bodies, and I need to have somebody on my bench, and so those guys might fit the bill. Yeah,
you got to be psychic these days with these injuries. You got to look deeper in the depth charts to kind of try to protect yourself. But it's kind of like throwing a dart or whatever. It's like you're kind of just guessing unless the injury already happens. I got a question, Deshaun. I don't know if he's saying he got offered Jamar Chase and Pollard for Scatterbo.
Yeah.
Am I missing something?
Nope.
We got to let Scatterbo go there.
Oh man, that's a smash accept. Yeah, that's why I'm like shake. I thought maybe he meant Chase Brown, but if that's the case, dude, I'm like smash accept on that.
Yeah, I think given the players, especially that he's showing on his roster, picking up Chase probably makes it worthwhile. I mean, a week or two ago, I don't think I would have made that deal just because Jamar Chase was starting to look dead. But with Flacco, I think that puts him back into the low end wide receiver 1 ranks pretty much on a weekly basis at this point.
This has to be redraft, right? It's got to be redraft. Yeah,
I'm assuming. And Flacco knows where to throw the ball. Almost 50% of his throws were to Higgins and Jamar Chase. Like, I mean, it's like he knows what he's doing here. It's like, all right, I'm brand new here. I'm just going to throw the ball to the two most talented wide receivers, arguably like the most talented duo in the NFL the whole time. It was good to see him do it, right? So I think that does kind of bring him back to life for certain.
Right.
All right, keep the questions, guys. We'll keep answering them. Let's go to KC. Mahomes and KC with a huge win at home against the Lions. I mean, I know we were excited about Mahomes coming into the season, Dan. We talked about, I was big Worthy guy coming into the season. Loved, obviously, Rice injured, but you knew he was coming back at a certain point. They had Hollywood Brown, like the depth around Mahomes, especially in the passing game. They brought in a running back like Brashad Smith. They've got Kelsey still there. Like, you just thought like this was the year that we would see kind of the resurrection of fantasy lord Mahomes, and we're seeing it right now, Dan. The QB1 in fantasy points per game. Is he kind of moving forward now? Is Mahomes like locked in for you in QB1 status? How should we look at this moving forward?
Yeah, today on Empire, I said Mahomes is going to break fantasy the rest of the season. I firmly believe that. I mean, I think everything is aiming in that direction. They do not have any sort of a running game to speak of. His receivers are getting healthy and unsuspended. He's already looked this good with what he's had to work with, and his offensive line, I think, is probably the biggest hidden key element in that they're keeping him upright. He's not even having to run as much as he was before, and he's able to start picking apart defenses. So love what we're seeing from Mahomes. If there's any way you can get Mahomes on your teams, I would highly recommend doing so, because he is going to absolutely smash.
Love that take. Absolutely love that take. Because I was higher than consensus on Mahomes. Like, I had him like right behind Burrow as like the QB6 going into the season, and I think people were definitely taking him later than I was. So I have a decent amount of Mahomes right now that feels really good. For me, it was just like people saw what he did last year, and he finished as a QB11, which isn't bad. But I think my problem was when people were looking at his 2024 performance and thinking like, oh, this is what we got. This is him now. Instead of looking at 2023 to 2018 when he was an elite top-tier QB the whole time. Like, 2024 is a blip on the radar. It's easy to tell yourself that story, and so far this year, I think that's what we've seen, is that 2024 was indeed a blip on the fantasy radar for Mahomes. And I was thinking about this, and I'd be interested to see what y'all would say. But, like, I think Mahomes is almost like, in my opinion, maybe even like a trade high candidate. Like, the only quarterbacks that I think for sure I want more than Mahomes right now would be probably Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. But anybody else, I would much rather have Mahomes, no doubt.
Yep.
Trying to pull up the strength of schedule here for KC, looking at the quarterback position. And I mean, they've got at Denver, well, they got their bye week 10, at Denver, week 11, which, will be a tougher game, at home against Houston, week 14. And then week 17, they're playing Denver again. Otherwise, it's pretty favorable or kind of neutral looking at the schedule versus the quarterback position. Looking at the passing game or the other weapons around him, I mentioned some of them. I mean, is there anyone sneaky or anyone that you're, that you talk about Mahomes being a buy high? Is there anyone else? I know Rice is coming back, obviously, off suspension. So most likely, I know I've got him on a couple dynasty teams. And Dan, we have him, I think, in a couple of our tournament teams. So you're kind of so excited to have him back right now that, it's the chances of you kind of letting go, but you could get crazy offers for him. Is there anyone else in this offense, Tyler, that maybe you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm actually interested in acquiring, or at least putting out feelers for Xavier Worthy. I think he's kind of been working himself back from an injury, and there's like a clip going around right now of him getting ran down by a linebacker, Jack Campbell, and I'm like, that doesn't look like himself. Like, I clearly think like he's not 100%. It's not just the shoulder. I believe he has an ankle injury as well. And I think that he's going to work himself back from that and return to that kind of like, speedster form. And I think right now people are going to panic a little bit on Worthy because he's been good, right? Worthy's been good since he came back from the shoulder injury, but he hasn't been like lighting the world on fire. And I think people are going to put Rashee Rice is coming back. That's going to completely remove Xavier Worthy from the equation. And that's not what I think is really going to happen. I do actually think that when Rashee Rice returns, that's a bigger problem for Travis Kelce in terms of where they work in the short area, kind of the middle area of the field, right? It is an extension of the run game in a lot of ways. So Kelce's, I think he's like tight end 5 or 6 through the season so far. Hasn't necessarily been crazy good, but he's been solid. I think Kelce is going to suffer a bit more in terms of his looks and his production with Rashee Rice back on the table. And I think if people are going to panic on Xavier Worthy because they see wide receiver coming in, that Xavier Worthy could be a decent kind of like buy right now if you want to fill in like that final flex spot or that wide receiver 3 spot on your roster. Is I think he's actually not going to be affected as much when Rashee Rice gets on the field. And I also think that Xavier Worthy has been playing a little bit through injury, and he is going to work himself healthy. So Xavier Worthy actually is a guy that I would be kind of interested in poking around and see what the Xavier Worthy owner is feeling about him with Rashee Rice on his way back.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm a big Worthy guy, and that's any opportunity because that's totally what it is, right? They're going to look at what he's done so far. He's coming off injury, and then, Rice is coming back. I'm going to move my Worthy pieces, before he kind of gets pushed out. Plus, we've seen Mahomes chuck the ball to so many guys this season with Thornton, Juju in that offense. So, there's kind of that maybe subconscious fear that, maybe they're going to spread the ball. They're going to have all these guys. I think it's just going to end up running through, the top 2 guys, Rice, Worthy. Kelce, I think, will be affected a bit, but Dan, wait, did I get you on this one already, Dan?
Nope. No.
All right.
But I think Tyler absolutely nailed it. Worthy was my answer as well, for exactly the reasons that Tyler laid out. This is JD. You're always saying, buy the rumor, sell the news, and this is a perfect example of that because it sort of in reverse because you're talking about Rice. The news now is Rice is back. And, so if I was looking to sell a player, it would probably be Rice right now because sometimes the best price you can get is, while everybody's expectations are sky high and before they've been hit with a dose of reality. So, if you have Rice shares that you might consider parting with, now is probably a great time to go out, take a look, see what you can get for him. And then, the rumor of Rice is what you want to buy with Worthy, and that's why I think that Tyler's exactly right. Worthy is a great piece to kick the tires on. You're not buying him at any price, but if his owner is willing to let him go a little bit cheaper because Rice is coming back, go ahead and take that discount and see what happens.
Yeah, go move Rico Dowdle right now for Xavier Worthy. Go do that. I bet you could.
Exactly.
Tyler, the Bears lean on the ground game last night in DeAndre Swift. How do you approach kind of weather-impacted games, specifically at the running back and the tight end position?
So I've gone back and forth about how I deal with weather in fantasy for years, and I eventually have come to a point in time where unless it's severe, I really don't sweat it, right? I can't tell you how many times I've it's like supposed to rain a little bit, or they're supposed to get a little bit of snow, and I change my projections, or I change my start sits because there's going to be weather, and I end up kicking myself for that because I'm like, it's really not as big of a deal. Like obviously, if you're going to get 30-mile-an-hour winds, right, or you're getting a foot of snow, right, or torrential downpours, obviously I'm going to adjust. But I think generally speaking, the fantasy community does weight weather a little bit too much. When they don't really need to, because if it's a light rain or a light snow, I don't necessarily think that NFL teams are changing their game plan because of it. They stuck to that game plan and they're going to continue to do what is best, right? So for me, I've looked at some data around weather in fantasy, and I don't necessarily take it as gospel, but everything I've also seen would point to the fact that unless it's severe or not, there's not enough of a difference for us to kind of panic or kind of change how we go about things.
Dan, anything to add as we kind of creep into the colder weathers, the fall type of wet, going into eventually winter where it's cold, wet, slushy, all that kind of fun stuff? Does that change your lineup decisions?
No, I think Tyler's spot on there. I mean, football is still, despite the number of indoor stadiums that we see these days and everything else, it's still an outdoor game, and players grow up playing it outdoors. They're used to it. They played in all kinds of conditions, throughout their careers back, back as far as well before high school. So it doesn't really bother me. The way I always remind myself is just that, while the ball may be a little bit slicker, a little bit more tough to handle for those offensive players, the advantage that they have also is that, like, if they're running routes in slippery or slick conditions, they know where they're going. The defender is the one who's having to react to them, and so that kind of, I think, negates the slippery factor of the ball and all that. Sometimes you can get receivers that come open because the defender just can't make the same cuts that they can because they don't know exactly what's coming.
Dan, I'm going to come right back to you. You were a big Loveland guy coming into the season. How you approach this tight end room moving forward? Loveland, coming off, I believe he's coming off injury. Komet seems to just be there, which I don't know. I don't know how people expected him not to be. Just he wasn't going to just disappear. Still a legit tight end. And, a lot of pieces in this offense. So how are you playing the two tight ends moving forward?
Yeah, Komet's main value right now is just mucking things up for Loveland because he's not really giving us enough to be a startable piece on his own, but he's also preventing Loveland from becoming a startable piece, I think. I have some hope that that's going to, we're going to work through that. Loveland was a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. That doesn't mean he's bust proof. But I don't think that they've really scratched the surface of what he can do. And even this past week coming off the bye, he was still limited in practice, which tells me that, they probably aren't featuring him very heavily into the game plans until they can get him to the point where they feel like he's truly healthy. So Loveland is a hold piece for me, not anywhere near my starting lineup. So
Monangai is still the guy we want behind Swift?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Monangai is never going to turn into anything unless something happens to Swift. But if something does happen to Swift, then I think Monangai is probably going to be the guy that you want to be rostering in this offense.
Tyler, you talked about Dowdle. He has a huge game, huge revenge game. Like, as much as we joke about the revenge game, it's like they just happen enough to just, become a thing, right? 183. Yeah. Like, he couldn't put up 110. He had to put up 183 yards and then another 56 in the air. Does this change your approach with regards to, like, Chuba, the running game in that offense, and what other pieces are you kind of looking at that you find interesting in this Carolina offense right now?
So it's funny because I think this is one of those pieces where, like, you have to kind of look beyond, like, the stats and the box score and kind of look at what Chuba means to the team and the Panthers and the locker room. I mean, in my opinion, Chuba is a above average talent. And I think that's putting it pretty nicely. In my opinion, is like kind of like an objective thing. But I think what he offers, just in terms of what he offers his team, what he offers the locker room, the energy that he brings, the leadership that he brings, the Panthers have showed that they value that. Like, it's him being a leader of this team in this locker room, and they rewarded him with that with like a $30+ million contract, right? So I think, with that said, even though Rico Dowdle could objectively be outplaying Chuba Hubbard, I don't see a world where Chuba just sits on the bench. I just don't think he's that kind of guy. He means too much to this team. He means a lot to the coach. He means a lot to the franchise, to where I think, like, we unfortunately are probably looking at ourselves like a split, like a 60-40 split, 50-50 split, because Rico Dowdle frankly looked more electric than Chuba, but I don't see a world when this team, the way that they've propped Chuba up as a core piece of this team and this offense, just puts him on the bench, man. So for me, I think this is like probably fine for the Panthers. Is like, they're like, oh, we actually have two pretty damn good running backs. Like, let's run them both out there. But I think for fantasy, this is gonna really hurt the people who are counting on Chuba, because I don't see him as more of a running back too going forward. And then this has been a nice little boon for the people that grabbed Rico Dowdle off waivers, but I do not see the Panthers just completely moving away from Chuba going forward. I don't think there's any way that happens.
Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree. And, the only other thing I'd add is, if you were going to pick two opponents to put your running back up against to get the best stats possible, it would probably be the Dolphins and the Cowboys. So, you have to ask yourself, what would have Chuba done against those defenses? And, that's not to take anything away from Rico Dowdle. He's definitely shown that he belongs in this league, and that he did a pretty darn good job last year for Dallas. So don't take him too lightly. But I think, unfortunately, it's going to be like Tyler said. This is going to end up being a messy committee that's probably not going to help fantasy out at all. So I'm not real excited about starting either one of them moving forward once they're both in the backfield at the same time.
The Dolphins and the Cowboys are just continuously just offering get-right games to everybody right now. That's basically what's happening. I think it's the Dolphins get the Browns next week, so we're going to see a huge Judkins game. So, so we're good to go there.
And I mean, the narrow target tree in Dallas continues, right? You got Pickens with 11 targets. Flournoy, I mean, even with 6 targets, puts 330. Jake Ferguson with his touchdown. Not bad in tight end premium. Dak gets his. I mean, he's QB4, I think, right now, points per game after 6 weeks. So I think he was one of the Fantasyland's favorites in the sense of value when you're looking at quarterbacks that were going later in drafts, and he's definitely been putting up. Do you guys think it changes much with regards to when CD gets back? Is this going to be like kind of a split between Pickens and CD, or are we still it's going to go back to the usual pecking order with CD getting peppered and Pickens getting kind of the leftovers, I guess you can maybe call it? Tyler?
I if I had to pick, I'll put it this way. So Pickens obviously was coming in, wasn't necessarily having a lot of time to practice, to gel, to get to know the players. And now he's gotten that opportunity. I would honestly be a little bit more concerned with Ferguson going forward to maintain a solid target share, because I think that nothing's going to be taken off of CeeDee Lamb's plate. I think he's going to come in and eat, right? As long as he's healthy, he's going to come in and eat. I have no doubts of what CeeDee Lamb can do. I don't think Dak Prescott does either. I expect whatever workload that we were expecting and have seen from CeeDee Lamb for him to come in and resume that. Now, what happens with what's left over, right? I certainly think that Ferguson and Pickens can continue to thrive as the 3 key pieces here. Specifically, as they're not necessarily Javonte Williams is doing very well considering what I thought he would do. But when you look at these 3 pieces here, I would expect him to be all right, well, Pickens is actually pretty damn good. CeeDee Lamb's going to get his. We need to get Pickens a little bit more involved than we did at the beginning of the season. So I think Pickens is going to come down to earth just a bit, just because when you're playing next to a player like CeeDee Lamb, I would argue almost every single player in the NFL outside of Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase would come back down to earth, because that's the kind of player that I think CeeDee Lamb is. But I do think Ferguson's going to come down to earth a little bit. Obviously, there's going to be less there for Pickens, but Pickens will remain startable. But this offense is cooking. I think that's the piece that I really want to say here is the defense is terrible. I believe the Cowboys are top 3 in passing yards, top 3 in points scored, and I don't think that's going to change. I mean, the Cowboys got to put up 40 points every week if they're going to win, man. That's just that's the brand of football that they have prescribed to this season. So with that said, and with the consolidated target tree, obviously Pickens is going to not be a top 10 option anymore. It's he's kind of been here for a second, but certainly a top 24 option, and Ferguson will continue to be a top 12 option going forward. But I'm not worried at all about CeeDee Lamb and his ability to be a top 5 wide receiver.
Dan, I think we get a Pickens offer. Was it this morning or in the last 24 hours? I think we got one. No, where somebody's trying to unload Pickens before CD comes back. What are your thoughts on the Dallas receiving game?
Yeah, so that was somebody was offering Pickens for our first, and that's that team where we are 1-5, and it is definitely time for a reboot. And trading away our first is probably not going to be a good way to go about that. Yeah. So we shot that offer into the sun and did not take it. I mostly agree with Tyler here. I think Pickens is going to become a little bit more boom bust like he was before, but I think he's going to be, it's going to be a higher level of boom and a higher level of bust, or a lower level of bust. I don't know what's the correct way to phrase it. I think the floor goes up, and I think the ceiling is not quite as capped as it was before. I do think Ferguson takes a little bit of a bump or a little bit of a hit from this, but Dak really loves Ferguson. He's shown that, game after game, year after year. So Ferguson is definitely not going away. I think if anything, this is going to make things a little bit easier for CeeDee Lamb, because you cannot you can't just sit there and double CD Lamb and say, we'll let Pickens hurt us if he can, because we know that he can. So I think it's going to help the offense all around.
Last week, Dan, Fantasyland had to pick a side. It was Vidal versus Haskins, right? With the, whether you're looking at these guys on waivers or, deeper dynasty teams, ends up Vidal with 18 carries, 124 yards, gets another 4 targets in the backfield to Hampton's 6 carries and 1 reception. Do you think Vidal's running away with this moving forward? I know Fantasyland was hot for Vidal last year and are probably a year late, and or everyone that had that bad taste in their mouth probably didn't come into the season with any Vidal, but he's made his way up the depth charts. He's taking advantage of his opportunity. Is this just a matter of them playing against Miami, like Tyler mentioned, or do you like Vidal kind of moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, cue every dynasty analyst. I wasn't wrong. I was just early with Vidal. I mean, that's what we've heard, and we're going to continue to hear. I do think that there was definitely a Miami effect in play there. But what was real is the fact that, I do think the dynasty community was right to, have pegged him as a, more talented player than Hassan Haskins, for sure. And, so that was one reason why I was higher on Vidal when I was going through waivers last week. I didn't put a ton into Vidal or Haskins on my waiver budget, just because I didn't think either one of them was going to do very well. I probably discounted the Miami effect a little bit too much. I probably should have been more willing to throw Vidal into my lineups in some places. But, I do think it's probably going to be more Vidal than Haskins moving forward. I think that's warranted. And the interesting thing is we don't know how long that's going to keep going, because it sounds like Hampton could be out for longer than 4 weeks. So, if I had my bids to do over again, I definitely would have gone a lot higher on Vidal on some of my teams. But that's the way it goes.
Yeah, Tyler, they go versus Indy this week. Not great. One of the stingier defenses against the run, but then versus Mini at Tennessee, at home to Pittsburgh, the next 4 games. How are you playing this LA Chargers running game moving forward?
Probably not that interested in Haskins at all. Like, obviously, I don't want to start him if I don't need to. I think Vidal looked dynamic enough, more dynamic than Haskins, and I think that's all he has to do for the short term is look more dynamic than Haskins, and he's good to go. So, I mean, again, Miami effect, but I think he's you can trot him out as a kind of mid to low end running back too going forward. I think he's a good bye week fill-in. If you got Vidal, filling in for Amari and Hampton or Bucky, it's probably going to be all right here for a bit. But certainly, I think we have just seen the career game from Kamani Vidal.
Brian Callahan, if you were to guess, I don't know that he would have been one of the first guys I would have thought of losing a job by now. Maybe thinking more Miami, but Tennessee just came in with maybe higher hopes with the offensive line. That didn't pan out, or hasn't panned out yet. Obviously they have a young quarterback, and you think that maybe there's a bit of a leash there with the coaching staff, but new regime comes in this offseason. Tyler and Brian Callahan gets chopped. They obviously want to bring in their guy. How does this look offensively for the Titans moving forward for you? You think it improves? Do you think are there pieces that maybe you're looking at to get into, or is this like all out of void for you?
It's an all out of void for me, because here's the thing where I was at least in for a bit was I like Pollard, right? And he was getting a great kind of rushing market share and snap share. But now Spears is back and they're splitting. And I don't want any split backfield on a terrible offense. Like, that's just fantasy 101. If there's a split backfield and this offense is terrible, you just really don't want a part of it. And I think that's going to be what we're looking at here. And, Ridley was a disappointment for a lot of folks. And I do like the rookie, Alec Aminor. Was big on him coming into the season. But it's really shaping up for just a total avoid for fantasy. I don't think there's a single piece of this offense that I'm going to trot out with any or even the slightest bit of confidence going forward here, at least in the short term, right? I don't think there's anything about this offense that needs to be plugged into your lineups.
Yeah, which sucks because I am Minor Dan was kind of looking decent coming in. You know, he was putting up those kind of mid-teens, those double-digit points for you. And as a rookie in that offense, you're kind of thinking like, oh, I'm glad I got this guy, you know, at the end of my bench. But Cam right now, the QB 33, Pollard the RB 32. Pollard's the one that disappoints me just because he was kind of like that 0 RB build guy coming into the season, just where he was going ADP wise, or at least like your RB2, you know, if you took one of those top studs. And then Ridley, just huge disappointment right now. Wide receiver 62 fantasy points per game. That whole offense not looking great. Dan, anything to add with regards to the Titans?
Yeah, I mean, I feel sorry for Brian Callahan, but Joe Burrow, I think, is the one that we have to hold responsible for this because he made Callahan look great. He made Zach Taylor look great, and both coaches look very exposed when Joe Burrow is not around to make him look good. We've already seen what happened with Callahan. I think the same fate might be coming for Zach Taylor.
Can't be soon enough.
I don't like to hope for people to lose their jobs. But,
yeah.
For my Bengals shares,
we only care about fantasy, Dan. That's all that matters.
Right, exactly.
Too bad.
We'll put it that way. Yeah. So I don't think that there's anywhere for the Titans to go but up at this point, but also, I don't really want to bet on that proactively either. I think probably a couple of the best things that could probably happen is if they can get Cam Ward settled down and just get him moving in the right direction, that would help. And I think trading Tony Pollard fantasy-wise would help out a lot. Getting Pollard into a better situation, let Spears have the run of the backfield. It would help the Titans, get some assets because you know what, Tony Pollard is not a part of the Titans' future. So he's a player that should be expendable for them and should have some value to plenty of other teams. So I'd like to see that. I don't know if that'll happen, but Calvin Ridley is he's completely miscast as a wide receiver 1. He is a wide receiver 2. He needs an alpha receiver next to him to truly shine. He hasn't had that basically for ever since Julio Jones, and it's shown in his career. He's just not good at handling the defense's main attention.
Yeah, he's never given you kind of, well, actually, I mean, he had that one season where he was wide receiver 4. That was like 6 years ago now. But I feel like every season he's kind of like everybody's like, oh, this is the year he's gonna be your stud receiver. He's gonna give you at least a wide receiver 1 production, and it just doesn't happen. Let's go to Dirtfish gameplay here. Would you trade Jaylen Warren and Tet for Breece and Harrison Jr.? Tyler, I'll go to you first.
I love Ted McMillan, so this makes this incredibly difficult. I think it's tough because I think most people would say, yeah, take Breece and Marvin Harrison Jr., and I am leaning that way. But man, moving Ted McMillan right now is not something I'm interested in doing. I'll just put it that way. So,
very rostered. I hate to use this as a scapegoat, but I feel like it'd be roster dependent because Ted right now is. You can only see the arrow pointing up. You know what I mean? Like he just every week gets better. Breece and Harrison, you're not necessarily getting. And Breece, it's just, I mean, he could get traded, right? Which could really be a good thing for him. Harrison, he's been decent. Now they've got Brissett there at quarterback, but that doesn't really seem to change much, to be honest. Dan, what do you think? Jaylen Warren probably splitting right now with Gainwell, with what Gainwell's done since he's gone?
Yeah, I'd fall on the Breece Harrison side of this, but I don't love the trade. I'm assuming this is redraft, not dynasty.
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming too.
Yeah. And, the thing is, I feel so sorry for Marvin Harrison Jr. because he got concussed early in that game when he actually had a quarterback who was pushing the ball down the field. I can only imagine what would have happened if he'd had a full game with Brissett. And that's not to say that I think Brissett is the answer, because I don't. But it does point out that Kyler Murray really isn't the answer there. And it just kind of shows, what the weaknesses are in Kyler's game. So, that's why it's hard for me to take the Harrison side of this. But then I look at Tut and I'm going, yeah, but he's got Bryce Young at quarterback, and I'm not sure he's any better than Kyler. So this is, it's just not a trade that I really like, because you're basically, I'm not sure that you can say that you're getting better at either position.
Yeah, that's fair. It's fair. It feels lateral.
Yeah. Yeah, but I hate any kind of straight up swaps, like receiver for receiver, running back for running back. Like, I feel like maybe take a look at the other team or look for another need that they might have and play it that way, especially in redraft. Now, let's talk waiver wire, guys. Tyler, I'll go to you first. Start it off. What's one waiver wire target right now for you as we go into week 7?
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's the obvious ones. Like if Vidal's out there, you want to move on him. I mean, Kendrick Bourne at this point in time is shown to have a decent amount of chemistry to kind of get done. I guess if I had to go a little bit deeper, I'd be looking at Luther Burden. We don't really know a lot about the DJ Moore injury right now, and while I think Burden's got some flaws in his kind of prospect profile, there has been, when given some opportunity, he's done a lot with them. And I think for my final one would probably be Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tez Johnson, right? There's a conglomerate of wide receivers there now because everyone's hurt. Godwin's out. Igbuka's looking like he's going to be out. Evans probably coming back soon, but he's out. So what does that leave? Tez Johnson, Sterling Shepard, and then there was another guy, I forgot who it was. And I think Tez Johnson is just one of the names that I was kind of looking at as somebody who he kind of started in place of Godwin, so I expect him to continue to be out there. And Baker Mayfield's balling right now. I think in your kind of standard size leagues that Tez Johnson, it was more of a deeper kind of cut, might make a little bit more sense. But I would say those are kind of the main names that I'm looking at. Maybe Fannin, if he's out there. Obviously, Njoku got injured, but most of my leagues I've been in, Fannin has already been rostered for what he did in the early season. But don't have a ton of other names kind of flying around my radar right now.
Dan, how about you, waiver wire? Give us someone you're targeting this week. Yeah,
for my deeper leagues, it's pretty much Tez Johnson. There are, and we're going to get into this in a minute, I think there are some trap plays out there that I'm not as interested in, but Tez Johnson, Baker Mayfield could basically take anybody out of your neighborhood retirement home and probably give them a pretty decent stat line as a wide receiver. So the way that he's playing lately, so I definitely some Tez Johnson. Cam Johnson is that other guy you were trying to think of, Tyler. I was trying to think of him too, and
thank you.
While you were talking, I was able to look him up. But I think he's a little bit more of a just a guy type rather than Tez Johnson. He's the MVP. I mean,
that was hilarious. That was if you haven't seen that clip, man, that's hilarious. When the crowd's yelling MVP to Baker, he thinks it's him because he just scored the touchdown, and then he comes to the bench and he's like, "Yo, man, they're yelling MVP," and then Shepard's like, "Yeah, man," and he's like, "But I haven't done anything all year." So funny. That's hilarious, man. But hey, he got the touchdown, right? That's the thing. Baker right now is you almost love to see Baker just crushing. Doesn't matter who's there, he's just. It's like he was like a vagabond for a while there, going from team to team, and he found his home. And now, I actually went Cade Otton here. I think in tight end premium. If Cade Otton's on waivers, he got 6 targets this week. And that's all you want from your tight ends, right, is targets and touchdowns. So you got to think they lean a bit more on him with all these injuries in Tampa. What was another guy? Well, I mean, if we talked about kind of running back guys. If Bam Knight is still out there, I think he's worth an add. Either one of those guys in Arizona, just because Connor's out for the year, right? So he gave you 12 fantasy points with a TD and 54 yards this year. against a stingy Indy, defense. They've been pretty good against the run. And then just keep an eye on, kind of handcuffs and like depth pieces that are, especially going into like trade season, you start hearing rumors. We'll kind of look at the depth charts behind. But I mean, the Bears, to me, they just want Burden to be a guy. I think that's 2 weeks now where he's led the Bears in receiving yards. And with all the weapons there, you would think a guy like Burden is, going to kind of like Loveland is going to come in a little slower, but he's given you couple decent games. And we could see more of that moving forward as this offense evolves with Ben Johnson at the helms. Are there any traps, guys? Tyler, is there anyone that you think is like, don't waste your money on them type of thing? I find this part's always tough because it all depends on your needs and what's out there in your individual league. But is there someone that stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because like I don't have anyone here that I think besides obviously Wan'Dale that you need to be spending any sort of legitimate fab on. Yeah. I mean, I would probably lean Jordan Whittington over Tutu Atwell if you're looking to get a Rams wide receiver in there with the Puka news, but. I just don't think there's anyone like I think Haskins was the trap last week, right? Yeah, that was in hindsight it's easy to say he was the trap, but I just don't see there being one right now. I mean, I wouldn't throw too much on Kendrick Bourne because if these wide receivers do end up working their way back, I could see Kendrick Bourne's significance completely go to zero. Kittle's coming back, maybe Pearsall works back soon. Jennings obviously is dealing with some broken ribs, 5 broken ribs, I believe. So I mean, I don't know how you deal with that in a season. So Bourne might be a little bit of a trap, but I also don't think he's necessarily a guy that I'm going to see anyone drop 20% of their fab on anyway. So I don't really have a clear trap for me this week.
What do you mean, man? You want Mac Jones? All of Mac Jones' weapons. Come on. Dan, any traps out there in the waiver wire land for you?
Yeah, I think that Keyshawn Boutte is a bit of a trap. And Pop Douglas as well, for that matter. I mean, people are going to look at, hey, Pop had a long TD called back and all this kind of stuff, but Pop was really not getting used that much. Even in this game, he happened to, have a couple of nice long catches, but that can disappear just as easily as it appears. I mean, basically there's nobody you can trust in New England other than Drake May. And, so trying to put a lot of money on Boutte and expect him to come in and save your team, I just don't think it's going to happen because, you look at his targets. He had 8 targets in the first week, and then it was 1, 3, 3, 3, and then he got all the way up to 5 this last week. And, you're not going to make a living off of, basically 3 targets a week. So.
He's the Calvin Austin of the New England Patriots.
There you go.
Basically.
There you go. That's good.
Yeah.
So those would be my traps.
All right, let's look at week 7. I see your questions, guys. We'll get to them right after this segment here. We're looking at the games coming up this week. Tyler, week 7. Is there a matchup that screams, like fantasy excitement, like you're just pumped to watch it because whether it's guys that you have on your rosters or just maybe screams shootout to you?
Yeah, I mean the 2 games at the top. The Lions and Bucks has got to be one of them. The Lions are down Branch for an idiotic move. They've also been down some corners. So I mean. While I think the Lions' defense is solid, they're definitely hurting in the secondary, and Baker should be able to sling it. And we know the Lions can move the ball pretty damn well. So I think that game is definitely a piece where you're going to want to get all the starters, which I think we just talked about that is like I would be fairly willing to start, maybe even Sterling Shepard, but Tez in this matchup as I expect there to be a lot of points there. And then it's going to basically be whoever's playing the Cowboys every week. So in this case, it's the Commanders. This one I think that like Vegas had this at like 54.5, and that's a very, very strong number. So it's basically going to be just like jam in all your Commanders and your Cowboys and your Bucks and your Lions this week for me. And those are the obvious ones. If I had to go like less obvious, like, all right, let's not pick the most implied totals in Vegas and do something a little more sneaky. I do like the Rams and Jaguars. I do think that one has a ability to deliver some solid fantasy. Yes, Puka's out. People are going to be a little bit down, but I do think, Devonta Adams is good for a bounce back game. Kyron's going to continue to get his. And then the Jaguars side, Brian Thomas Jr. seems to kind of figured it out. I don't know exactly what was going on. I heard there was some kind of wrist injury going on. Maybe that's behind him. Maybe the confidence is back. But I do kind of like the Jags and Rams as a little bit more of a sneaky game that can put up a lot of fantasy points for us.
Dan, other side of it, games that Fantasyland should temper expectations. We talked about a couple defenses to maybe be to have caution going into when you're playing your players against them. And are they part of that this weekend? What's a game that you're maybe tempering expectations for this weekend?
Before I do that, I want to throw out one more game that I really like.
Do it.
Chicago and New Orleans, I think, is sneaky shootout potential. Neither defense is really great. Both offenses have proven to be at least, the Saints have proven to be semi-competent, and Chicago more than that. So I think that could be a fun game.
47.5
anyway.
Yeah, 47.5. It's one of the top, scoring games according to Vegas.
Yeah, I think games I prefer to stay away from, generally Denver and the Giants. Denver's defense is playing great. Their offense is not playing great. The Giants defense is playing just good enough that with Denver's offense not playing great, I see that as probably being a little bit of a rock fight. Carolina and the New York Jets, again, a couple of offenses that aren't really great going up against defenses that are probably a little bit underrated. I think those could be pretty bad ones. And if there's a dark horse, I'd say maybe it's the Eagles against the Vikings. It is going to be indoors at Minnesota, which makes me think it could do better than I'm feeling like it might do. But the Eagles have a decent defense. The Vikings have a decent defense. Both offenses have their problems, so that could be one where it turns into a defensive slugfest as well.
Yeah, I'm going to add, Tyler talked about Miami at Cleveland, Judkins going off against Miami, but 40.5 is the over-under on that one, so not expecting fireworks, let's say, in Cleveland. Looking at players, Tyler, that maybe haven't popped yet, or maybe they're showing signs, but they haven't really full out blown up yet. Is there a player that comes to mind as someone, whether it's trading for in Dynasty or someone that, deeper wise, I guess waivers, but it's more like, is there kind of like a buy right now before the storm hits when we're talking, whether it's a rookie or a vet moving forward?
We brought it up, Judkins is a guy that I've because I believe in Judkins. And in full transparency, I was definitely a Travion Henderson over Judkins. I had that stance going into the season, right? But
I think most people did. Yeah, it's safe to say.
I think when all that crap went down, obviously that was a much easier stance to take. But before, he had those issues. I think there's some domestic dispute issues that I was still very firmly Henderson. So, but for him to come in with no practice and just take the entire share, I think speaks volumes to the volume that he's getting. So for me, it's if there's an opportunity to buy low right now, I love the idea of getting Judkins because I think he's locked and loaded, high-end RB2 rest of the season. I know this offense sucks, but he's good. He's good, but he just gets so much of the work. They will put Ford out there sometimes, but he's one of those guys where I'm all right, well, I kind of want to get him on the team a bit here, and then just to kind of pivot the other direction depending on kind of, I don't know what your record would be, but I don't know if it makes as much sense for me, but I think Nico Collins has kind of been underperforming a bit, and if somebody's ready to kind of jump off the Nico Collins train, something I could be interested in. While I was a little low on Collins going into the season, I definitely had him back towards AJ Brown and Ladd McConkey, and I didn't have them towards the elite wide receivers, which honestly looks pretty good right now. I would also say that I think he's going to do better than his wide receiver 23 finish that he has right now. So if somebody's like drafted Nico to be this elite guy, they're a little fed up with him. I do think he has it in him to still be a low-end wide receiver 1 as the season comes to an end. I know that the Texans have been a bit of a kind of a mess here a bit, but that's another guy that I've been looking at a bit to be like, if someone's got Nico Collins, they're kind of maybe sitting at, 1 win, 2 win, they might be trying to shake something up. I would look his way as well.
Well, especially you're talking a guy that was going kind of end of the first, going into the second. He's only given you one top 6 week. Yep. Otherwise, he's been like the wide receiver 64, 30, 29, 18. I mean, they're coming off of that Ravens win, but he was, even out of that one, he only came out with 16. So I kind of like that. Dan, I know we like the Judkins. We were, is it our main or was it Big Gorilla where we went late, when he was falling? I think we maybe caught the bottom on Judkins in one of our drafts.
Yeah, I think that was the main. And we picked him up for a very cheap price. Really made our wide receiver or running back room look great. So like that one a lot.
Who do you want to add, Dan, to this list?
Yeah, I think we've already talked about him, but I think Luther Burden is a really good ad right now, especially with the DJ Moore news. I don't know if he's going to be playing or not. Staying in the hospital overnight after a game certainly doesn't sound encouraging. And I think Burden is low-key getting a little bit more involved in that offense anyway. So given those two things, putting them together, I think Burden is a great player to target now before he really starts getting expensive. I'd be looking at Tajay Spears and Isaiah Davis just on the chance that, we do see a Pollard trade or we do see a Breece Hall trade. That could make them pop. And you mentioned Nico Collins, Tyler, but also I think Jaden Higgins is maybe starting to pop a little bit. He was starting to get a little bit more work before the bye. A lot of times when teams go into the bye, we see him, kind of self-scout and say, hey, we need to start getting, player X or player Y more touches. Higgins could be one of those guys. He's somebody that I'm going to be adding on waivers on places where he's available in seasonal leagues, before this next week and, see what happens.
Yeah, Burden was on my list. I definitely like that. I like the Nico call. I'll add Matthew Golden. I think I brought him up either last week or the week prior. He went 3 for 5 targets, 3 receptions, 86 yards. I think there's like a big game coming with Golden. I just see he's slowly kind of working his way nicely. When you look at routes run, he's improved every single game so far this year. You see him becoming more and more involved. I know Dubs is there, but I could see a shift happening there as the rookie gets more and more comfortable as the season develops. So that's just an offense you think you hope is going to put up a lot of points, and I think Golden keeps growing in that offense. And sneaky would be we talked about it earlier. I know Komet's there to kind of cap his upside, but Colston Loveland, just because you could probably get him pretty cheap right now, is why I like maybe buying him before he pops. Any trade targets that we haven't talked about yet? Tyler, I'll throw mine out. I bought him last week, but James Cook with another dud. I always feel like these receivers or these offensive weapons that maybe haven't necessarily produced big numbers in the last week or two always offers an opportunity to maybe go get yourself a piece that, if he was putting up 30 a week or 25 a week, wouldn't be easy to buy. And I think James Cook is definitely fits that mold. Is there anyone that stands out to you as maybe a trade target right now?
I mean, I would trade away Rico Dowdle. I mentioned that earlier on the show, but that's something that I would be definitely trying to look to do if somebody thinks he's going to hold on to that. And then I don't have another one, but really just wanted to double click the. You talked
about Worthy too being a buy right now. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the guys I'm actively targeting right now in redraft leagues, to be completely redraft. I feel like redraft trades are a little bit more rare, sometimes a little bit more nuanced. So certainly, for me, I think Xavier Worthy's kind of like the big guy I'm going to be going at, because I think that's just a clear Rice is back, Worthy's done, and I don't think that's the case.
Dan, before we get to the questions in the live chat, make sure you drop your questions, guys. Anyone to add as a trade target right now?
Yeah, I think if I was a dynasty team that was not going to be competitive this year, now would be the time to try to get some Egbuka. See if you can put together a package of players that can help. If there's a team that's been relying on Egbuka, see if you can put something together that would allow you to acquire him, because you're not looking to be competitive anyway, and so. I think there will be the tiniest of buy windows there. And I think that it's going to be a rare thing with Egbuka finding even a tiny buy window.
Would you send Tet to get Egbuka plus?
Yeah, if I could get Egbuka plus, I mean, I think probably I would send. This is so tough because I like Tet better in a vacuum, but quarterback matters, and Tet looks like he's going to be tied to Bryce Young for a while, and Egbuka looks like he's going to be tied to Baker Mayfield for a while. So I would probably do that trade straight up even.
Wow. All right. So the Egbuka owner in my Triflex rebuild right now expect an offer. Let's go to the chat, guys. Alex Flores, trade Moore and JMO for Terry. I imagine that's Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, Jameson Williams.
Yep.
So a 2-for-1 here, Tyler. Do you like this?
It's a tough one for me because so far I don't think anyone's been excited about starting JMO or DJ Moore. It's been pretty disappointing for anyone who drafted all of these players. But at least with Terry McLaurin, you can point to the injury as to why he hasn't been performing. At the same, it's so much easier when a guy gets injured in a sense because you just don't have to start him, right? You don't have to worry about it. But if you're starting JMO, he's been a dud I think almost every week but one, and then DJ Moore. I mean, I don't think he's had a single real good week since he's played. So. I don't know, I kind of would like this more if you're trading DJ Moore and JMO for someone else besides Terry McLaurin, but I think if you're trying to consolidate and move up a little bit, I don't necessarily hate this one that much. I'm not wild about it. I think. Would
you send those two for Xavier Worthy?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think I would, honestly. I think I would do that. It's tough because what's holding me back here is accepting that DJ Moore might be done as somebody who loves DJ Moore, right?
Yeah.
That's what's really hurting me here is the name recognition that comes along with him because I love DJ Moore. But I think it is time to admit that A, this Bears offense might not be as good as we thought it would be. And then B, that this is Rome Odunze's offense now. He's the wide receiver one here. So I think the name recognition alone is kind of tough for me to grapple with, but I'm leaning towards taking the risk on Terry here because let's be real, you're not necessarily excited about starting DJ Moore or Jameson Williams any week.
Dan, Jameson coming off of 6 for 66 and a touchdown.
That's good.
What are your thoughts on the trade?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's what JMO can bring you on any given week, but he can also bring you 2 for 23 or whatever. It's just tough for me trading for a player who has not even yet come off of injury. We don't even yet know if he's going to play this week. We've heard early in the week, pretty much every week, that there's some optimism around Terry McLaurin, and then by the time we get to the middle and late parts of the week, that optimism has vanished. So I guess I'd be a little bit skeptical. Other than just another week has passed that anything is going to change this week until we actually see it change. So this would be something where I wouldn't do this right now. If you're going to make an offer like that, I would make it more on, Friday or Saturday if we get some word that McLaurin is definitely playing. Otherwise,
is there a better receiver? Because I'm looking at this trade and I'm not excited to send JMO after he puts up 18.6 with everything you guys just talked about. I mean, DJ Moore is DJ Moore. I mean, if he becomes something, that's kind of bonus. But if you need production right now, is there another receiver, Dan, that you would maybe make this move for, or maybe try to make this move for? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot. I'm just wondering if you had someone in mind. That's more my question.
I mean, if I could get a Tech McMillan, probably I would do that. If
I like that.
a Roma Dunze, I would probably do that.
Oh, I like that one. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that I would definitely do. But I just don't like trading for injured players until I'm sure they're going to be back.
That's fair.
So what is this? Sutton, Keenan, Mayers, PPR pick. Oh, pick one. Pitts, Ertz, also Hurts or May. Thanks. Sutton, Keenan, Mayers, PPR pick one.
Sutton, Keenan, and who?
Mayers.
Looks like
Michael.
wide receiver. Myers.
Vegas.
Oh yeah, I got this Sutton for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, Sutton definitely. Probably lean Pitts over Ertz, and I probably lean May over Hurts just because of the matchup. Hurts is going to be going up against the Vikings, and Drake May gets who does he get? But it was a good matchup.
Yep.
Hang on. Drake May gets he gets Tennessee.
Yep, I got May one spot over Hurts right now, and then tight ends I actually have Ertz one spot over Pitts, but I think that's because it's me wanting pieces of the Dallas Commanders game that has that 54 point.
Yeah, that's total. Fair. That's fair. And Pitts has been a little bit up and down, so I don't mind that.
Yeah, it's super close for me with the quarterbacks. I mean, May's been awesome as expected. Just second-year quarterback out there in New England. It's pretty close. I mean, Hurts is playing Minnesota. You can go either way there. Trade. Oh no, we already looked at that one. What's this one? PPR. Would you trade away Mike Evans and Judkins for Rashee Rice and J.K. Dobbins? Oh, that's an interesting one. Actually, Tyler, I'll go to you first talking about Judkins. I'm guessing this is redraft.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in Evans coming back and being good. We were just talking about...
Like, what kind of timeline?
I mean, it sounds like I would expect Evans back in the next, week, maybe two tops. This is tough for me, but, getting Judkins right now, I was just talking about this. The thing is with Dobbins is, I don't necessarily love having Dobbins on my team, and I think as the season progresses, we might see less Dobbins and more R.J. Harvey. Unless you're, in a really good spot at running back...
So he's got Judkins, Kyron, Jalen Warren, Aaron Jones, and then wide receivers are Evans, JSN, Jamar Chase.
So if he got rid of Judkins, he would have Kyron and Jalen Warren?
Yes, and Aaron Jones, and then Dobbins.
I mean, I get the appeal of wanting to go get Rashee Rice, but I think I'm going to hold on to Evans and Judkins in this case.
Yeah, because you have JSN and Chase kind of holding fort, right, Dan? And then, Judkins going to be legit.
Yeah. This week at least.
Yeah, I would rather I would rather be strong at running back, and I think he needs Judkins to do that.
We see how valuable these workhorse running backs are right now, right?
Right. Yes, and somebody had a question about trading Ladd for Hampton. A little further up in the chat. Gilad Gamelin.
Oh, right here. I mean, do you guys think I should trade Ladd for Hampton in a 6? Oh yeah, that's what it was, because I was asking him what his team looked like. So his team is Ladd for Hampton. He's got Herbert, Adams, Rashee, CMC, Cook, Etienne, Ladd, Pittman, Pollard, Jordan Addison.
I don't know what this trade does for him other than give him an injured asset for several weeks.
Yeah, I'm okay with not doing it either.
You're selling high and you're buying, you're selling high and buying low, but it's not a good move with your roster.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have no idea how long he's going to be out.
I think the only thing I've heard for sure about Hampton is that he's going to come back this year. It's not a season-ending injury, but besides that, I don't.
And you have CMC, you have Cook. Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Etienne.
You're fine at running back. There's just no reason to do that.
So, Tan Style, I know we've talked about these guys. Titan Style is asking, should he sell high on Ladd? and JMO. I think it depends on what your need is. Like if you have if you have a running back need and you can get yourself a really good running back, maybe a Judkins, something like that. For me, it just depends on roster for this question specifically. You guys have anything, Tyler?
Yeah, I would probably need to know more. I certainly am not opposed to selling Ladd right now with QJ being out, but would have to kind of know what else you're looking at or what you're looking to acquire.
Yeah.
I don't think you can really sell high on JMO. It's just been one game. I think people are going to know. At least Ladd's had a couple.
I mean, did anyone really expect to have JMO and be like an every week-to-week producer? I know he's had like a line of duds to start the season, but at the end of the day, he's a boom or bust player, right? Like, was that going to change? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, no. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So he's saying his QBs are Dak. Hold on, receivers: Chase, Ladd, Ridley, JMO, Dubs, Washington. RBs are Saquon.
I don't think you can afford to sell.
Yeah,
Ladd, JMO, given that wide receiver core, you can't count on Ridley for anything. You can't count on Dubs. You can't count on Malik Washington. Can't count on Coker. It's basically you got Chase plus Ladd and JMO. Those are the three guys that you can probably count on the most, and you're wanting to sell one or two of them. I don't see it.
Yeah, agreed. All right, Tyler. Totally appreciate your time, man. I know you've given us almost 90, man. That's super generous of you, and we appreciate all the goodness and the value you've brought to the fantasy land. Remind them where they can find your goodness. You're out there on FTN Fantasy and anywhere else they can find you.
Yeah, so primarily over on X or Twitter at FFTylerO. You can always find me over there, and then all the content runs through FTN. Everything the podcast, the articles, everything's over at FTN, so you can find everything there. And if you're looking to get direct in touch with me, we have some like fairly affordable packages that get into our Discord there, and I'm usually in the Discord every day chatting it up. So if you're interested, come on by.
Check him out at FFTylerO on the X machine. Dan, anything to add? I know next week we've got our buddy Josh Larkey. We're still trying to figure out the exact time and date, so make sure you guys are following at Goat District and at Overhyped Sleeper, no E on the end, to get those updates. But Dan, you guys put up a stellar show today on the Empire. Anything else? Anything else people should know to find you?
Yeah, that's the main thing. You can catch me on the Fantasy Empire. You can catch me right here every week. I really enjoyed doing both of these. And you can catch me out on X as well, as JD just mentioned. My handle is right here at Overhyped Sleeper. No E between the P and the R on Sleeper. And I'm usually fairly approachable on Twitter, so or X or whatever you want to call it. So if you got questions or whatever, feel free to hit me up. And just good luck out there to everybody. It's going to be a wild week, I feel like, with all the injuries and everything else going on. So I'm just wishing everybody good performances from their guys.
Yeah, this is where all the fun starts, when we get into the thick of it. I mean, drafting a team and letting it ride is no longer unless you're playing best ball, right? Like these tournaments, you got to be playing waivers. You got to make sure you're trading, being active. So good luck to you guys out there as we go into week 7. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We got a lot of goodness coming. Make sure in the comments, if you're listening right now, 3 things or a couple things. First of all, let us know if you prefer the show on Tuesday evenings like today, or if you prefer us going live on Thursdays around, kind of late morning, just because Dan and I find we have a lot more information by then, especially the way this season's gone. And then if you're looking to put out content or you're looking to join kind of a team, whether you're on the back end production, that kind of thing, graphic design, just reach out at Goat District. Give us a shout out in the DMs and or at what's the Goat District at pm.me is the email. So reach out to us there. You guys have been awesome in the chat today. Tyler's been great, brought a lot of value. Dan, always a pleasure. Make sure you smash that like, and we'll check you all later.
district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text, that trash offer's the best. You try to make it complex, then they text you back, now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.